And we are going to start a prediction in chat as well here. Will McLaren win his 6th race tonight as we are waiting for lights out? And we are officially underway here in Hungary. And McLaren leads us into turn 1 here. Things kind of getting dicey towards the back of the field. The grid shuffling around. Ooh, and we've got a lock up there. It looks like that may have been the Mercedes of Tegan. We've got a little... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, we made it cleanly through the first turn here.
Ooh, and Wubby's 210 in the Alfa Romeo is way wide at turn 2. He loses a number of positions there as a result of that. Relatively clean through the opening stages here of the first few corners to start the race. Oh, and Scavenger is off here at the exit of turn 5. It looks like he just kind of almost had this car snap around on him, but he stays clean, doesn't get any contact, and is able to rejoin, but he does drop all the way down into 9th now. And here just getting the camera angle at turn 12. Very great shot here as it follows all of the cars. And McLaren comes through turn 14 and will lead us to the line for the first lap of 35. A 1:24.911 becomes our preliminary fast lap of the race. I don't expect that to last very long.
Not long at all.
And after one lap, let's take a look at the position changes. Moises falls from 2nd to 3rd. Lieutenant Spartacus gains 3, moving from 5th to 2nd, and Farmer Ginge jumps up from 8th to 4th. Link's Worst Nightmare up from 6th to 5th. Dirty Liberal down 3 from 3rd to 6th, and then Scavenger drops down 6 spots all the way to 10th. Tegan drops 5 spots all the way into 12th, and Wubby's 210 drops 5 spots all the way into 16th now.
Quite the field shakeup with that first lap.
Absolutely. And looking at the tire compounds here, we do have an interesting makeup. Most of the field going with the mediums. Dirty Liberal, Daniel Bontempo in the Williams cars going with the softs, as well as Tegan in the Mercedes and Wubby's 210 in the Alfa Romeo, as Scavenger now gets a 3-second penalty for track limits.
Didn't see that one coming.
And a little early, so I'm kind of surprised to see that happen already. After what we saw happen on the opening lap at the exit of turn 5, though, I'm wondering if he's having some issues controlling the vehicle.
It is possible that he's having input troubles.
Also, another interesting note on the tire compounds, Farmer Ginge and Jay Cokes, the only 2 drivers to opt for the hard tires to start the race, so we may see a very long stint from them here to start this race here.
We certainly might.
And we have Wubby's 210 in the Alfa Romeo already in for a pit stop. He is replacing the nose, so he has some damage sustained there, but he's back out and underway, heading out of pit lane now.
And he is on fresh softs.
And looking at on board with Moises right now, currently trailing by about 8/10 of a second now, almost. And there's the full second on Lieutenant Spartacus. So Moises trying to regain that 2nd place spot after the AlphaTauri front row lockout in qualifying. So we'll see if he can make up the time. Definitely plenty of time in the race to do so.
There certainly is. Looks like Daniel is working his way past Pizza Dog here, although he's falling back now.
And as you were saying that, I was just shifting over to Daniel's teammate, Dirty Liberal. In the other Williams, he just overtook Farmer Ginge to overtake 4th. Oh, and Farmer Ginge is around. Looked like maybe some minor contact there at the front wheel of Farmer Ginge on the rear right side of...
And there goes its wing.
Oh, yes, and in fact, he does bump the wall and loses part of the front wing there. And Farmer Ginge is going to drop not just from 4th into 5th, but all the way into 15th now. And he does have no vertical fin on the front wing on the right hand side, so that is going to affect the downforce a little bit and the handling. So we'll see if he comes in for a pit stop here at the end of this lap, or if he tries to tough it out. Meanwhile, the other Williams driver, Daniel Bontempo, currently in 7th, chasing down the Ferrari of Pizza Dog, was at about 1/10 of a second and has fallen back, but is starting to reel him back in here. And we are coming into turn 11, so if he stays behind, nope, he's going to look to the inside. He makes the move into 6th place. Oh, and Pizza Dog looks like he lost grip on his own. No contact visible there. Just goes off into the grass and gets right back on. Drops another spot to the Mercedes of Jay Cokes, though.
That was a good bit of racing there. And it looks like Coffee Black is on the tail of Scavenger.
That indeed here. This is a battle for 11th place. Only separated by about 4/10 and closing. And Tegan has come into pit at the end of lap 4. So let's take a look and see what's going on with Tegan in the Mercedes. A very slow pit entry here.
And we have Ishkabibble and Pizza Dog cutting it up a little bit here.
And the camera angle not favoring what's happening on pit lane. I do believe they did change the front wing on the Mercedes to Tegan, though. So he is back released and underway. He's switched to hard tires, so that may be his one and only pit stop we see from him, but I think that's going to be pushing it this early in the race.
I certainly do think that will be pushing it.
So since this is a 50% race distance, we will likely see those on the mediums come in probably right around between lap, I'm going to say 11 or 12 at the earliest, and probably no later than about 16 or 17 on the long stint. Those on the softs, really, that's only going to be Dirty Liberal and Daniel Bontempo, who started on those now. I'm going to say we probably see them come in between probably the end of lap 8 and no later than the end of lap 13 or 14.
I think that's a very good estimate for this track.
Really, this track isn't super notorious for eating up the tires, but with how technical it is, it's very easy to lose the tire grip if you come in too quick, or if you get on the accelerator, you can almost create like a flat spot, even though in most sim racing, you can't really create a flat spot on tires very easily, but spinning the wheels will still increase the tire degradation.
And there is plenty of opportunity to do so on this track.
And we are starting to see more drivers come in, as Scavenger in the McLaren has come in, as well as Farmer Ginge in the Haas. And looks like Scavenger has come out on a fresh set of softs, so we will probably see him switch over to either hards or likely mediums if he has any left for his next pit stop, because this will definitely be a 2-stop race for him now.
Definitely.
And just looking over intervals across the grid, we are at least 1 second or more between every car right now.
They have certainly spread themselves out.
And the gap from Lieutenant Spartacus, currently in second in the Alpine, to race leader McLaren, is almost 2 seconds, 1.8 right now in climbing. And Moises, the second AlphaTauri, currently in third at 1.8 behind Spartacus. So we are seeing a decent gap there, and Liberal in fourth place is almost 4 seconds back on Moises. So a good gap kind of forming everywhere across the grid right now.
It certainly is.
And I'm wondering if Scavenger had set up his strategy to come in early, because he still has the penalty associated with him, and he's only had the one so far for 3 seconds for track limits. So I'm wondering if that was a scheduled stop for him, because you cannot clear the penalties in F123 if you have a scheduled stop. So it has to be on a non-scheduled stop, as SD Bookie now gets a 3-second penalty for the same thing of track limits.
That he does. Well, I'm hoping the flags don't fly fast and furious here. Especially as we get on in the race and the drivers get a little bit more tired and trying to push it a little harder.
We did have a momentary caution pop up there. Looks like that was for the Alfa Romeo of Wobbe's 210. That was appeared to be at the exit of turn 7. He is back underway. We'll see if we can see anything on camera. It looks like the front wing's intact, so I'm thinking he just went off track on his own into the grass and was slow to get back on. So cautionary as Ish Kabibble drops from 8th to 9th. The Pizza Dog and the Ferrari, so the Red Bull will drop to 9th. And now this becomes our closest battle on track right now, as Ish is already back 7/10 and climbing. And Scavenger with the fast lap here, preliminary at a 1:19.682. We'll see if that holds up. But with how this race is going, I would expect McLaren to come back for that strong kind of in the later stages, unless he switches to hards.
Even then, there's still a chance.
This is very true. It is McLaren after all.
That it is. It looks like Coffee Black is slowly catching his way up to SD Bookie.
And looking over the position changes now as we approach the start of lap 9 for Ish Kabibble, McLaren already on 9. We have seen most everyone in the green in the top 13, with the exception of Moises and Dirty Liberal, who are both down 1. And then Scavenger, our big drop right now, lost 10 spots, currently in 14th. And then Tegan 2007 and Farmer Ginge both down 9 spots, currently in 16th and 17th respectively, as Wubby's 210 also down 4 spots and 15th at the moment.
And Coffee Black just made a pass on SD Bookie in the front straight with a lovely use of the overtake button.
Ooh, and General Whitney at the same time gets a 5-second penalty for speeding into pit lane. So a little bit hard pill to swallow with that 5-second penalty. The 3-second penalties are a little bit easier to kind of swallow because it saves you 2 seconds, but those pit entry speeding penalties can really come back and bite you pretty hard.
That they can. It's a pity, really.
We're going to get punny tonight, are we?
I punt it out of the park if I can, you know.
And coming into tonight, as we were talking earlier, Emu, the Constructors' Championship, AlphaTauri leading, they've got 347 points. Williams, currently in second, has 195 points. They trail by 152. So coming out of this race, depending on what happens with Liberal and Daniel Bontempo, we may see that grow even more drastically. And we could see a situation where we had in the real F1 season where AlphaTauri, instead of Red Bull, pulls away by a full distance of equal proportions of what they currently hold.
That would be an interesting repeat, and Jay Cokes and Daniel Bontempo are currently cutting it up on the track pretty well.
And looking at things here as well, towards the front, Moises now has closed that gap by over a second since we last checked on him about 2.5 laps ago. Here on lap 10, he's trailing Lieutenant Spartacus now by about 0.8, was in the 0.7 range as he closes back in a little bit here. So we may see some close racing action here in the next couple of laps between Lieutenant Spartacus and Moises for second place. We are getting very close to the pit window opening for those medium tires, though. And Dirty Liberal in 4th, currently 3 seconds back on Moises. And we'll see how long Liberal can kind of hang with the medium tires here as we get later into the stages of this race.
Yeah, I was just gonna say a few of the soft tire guys are certainly within their window. It looks like from the way Wubby 210 car is handling, his softs are certainly starting to fall off a little bit.
Well, Liberal has opted to stay out, so he has done a full 10 laps on those softs as he starts lap 11. He has caught up to Moises a little bit. He was at about 2.9 seconds back, and he is now starting to fade a little over 3 seconds back at the moment. And look at this. Moises is now within about 2/10. He had to let up there to avoid contact with Lieutenant Spartacus. So he is closing that gap drastically here. And Spartacus has dropped to over 4.5 seconds back on race leader McLaren. So we may see AlphaTauri take over 1 and 2 again here as we come close to the midpoint here in the next couple of laps.
We certainly may.
And Wubby's 210 has come into pit, currently in 16th. 8-lap-old soft tires will come off. And Moises has started to fade back. He's now at about 4/10. Meanwhile, Dirty Liberal has closed the gap by almost a full second, 2.1 seconds back on Moises now. So that is starting to affect their pace for second place right now.
It certainly is, and it looks like Wubby's 210 went with hard compound tires.
And Dirty Liberal will enter pit lane, and we will see what he opts for. Comes in on 11 lap old soft tires once he crosses the start finish line. There it goes. And he's already dropped back to 5th. Meanwhile, his teammate, Daniel Bontempo, will get a 3-second penalty for track limits. And it looks like we have a caution at the exit of turn 7. Going to be the Ferrari of Parker 8. And it looks like he's back underway without issue. I don't see any front wing damage on the camera, so he should be okay. Probably just another grass runoff issue there. Moises now falling back on second place again. Now it's 0.6 of a second.
It looks... Jake Cokes is still all over Daniel's tail. It's 11 lap old hards versus 11 lap old softs.
And I would honestly be surprised if we don't see Daniel Bontempo come in at the end of the current lap. And those softs are 11 laps old, as you were saying. Oh, and we've got a car stopped. It looks like, is that right at pit lane? Yes, that is right on the front straight, right at the exit of turn 14. It's the Red Bull of General Whitney. Not sure what happened there. I don't see any visible front wing damage. He is ghosted out, so it looks like he's allowing the AI to control the vehicle right now, so he may be having some technical difficulties, and as a result, the AI has taken over. Daniel Bontempo indeed comes in, so he will finish a stint on 12 lap old softs. His teammate Dirty Liberal, who came in 4th place, is currently in 9th and has opted for mediums. And Daniel Bontempo going with hard, so I think we are going to see a one-stop strategy for Daniel.
I think that sounds about right.
For those of you that may be unfamiliar with how F123 works, even though we are running 50% race distance, the tires do degrade at a significantly faster rate to kind of match as if they were running 100% race distance. And we've got a McLaren around. That's going to be Scavenger at the exit of turn 1. He's still in the grass.
Looks like he's back underway.
That he is indeed. And I do believe, yes, in fact, he has lost the vertical fin on the front arrow on the left side. So we may see him come in for another stop earlier than planned. He's only had 7 laps on those tires. You can see the front arrow is affecting his grip levels there a bit as he runs wide at turn 4.
It certainly is. He's got almost a full lap to go around the track as well.
And the Haas of Farmer Ginge encroaching on him ever so slightly here, slowly reeling him in. And it looks like Scavenger's going to run wide and just let him go by, conceding the position, which is the right call to do in that scenario because he knows he can't be competitive there with the aero damage. And judging by what we're seeing here, I would be really surprised if we don't see him pit because he is struggling very much with turning the vehicle right now.
Just a little bit of aero going on that front and you lose a lot of grip.
And in fact, yep, here he comes into pit lane, into the entrance. So we will likely see him probably switch. I'm going to say that he's probably going to switch to hards.
Most likely, I would. And SD Bookie has gotten another 3-second track limits penalty.
And an interesting thing to note, too, that very close battle that was starting to unfold towards the front has now started to dwindle out. Moises now over 1.2 seconds back on Lieutenant Spartacus. Ooh, and gets a little bit of back end snap there as he comes out of turn 14, sliding out of the pit or out of the corner exit there.
And he's definitely slowing a lap down a little bit as those mediums get older. He's 2 seconds off his best lap, so 2.3 seconds off his best lap currently. And
another interesting note, Lieutenant Spartacus, who's in second in the Alpine, he was about 4 seconds back as we see Dirty Liberal now set a new fast lap of the race, 1:19.640. But Lieutenant Spartacus was a little over 4 seconds back when he and Moises were battling there just a few laps ago. and is now within under 3 seconds of our race leader McLaren. And I would be surprised if we don't see McLaren, Spartacus, and Moises start to look to pit here at any time. I'd be surprised if these mediums really last more than about 2 or 3 laps more into what they've already ran, and they're already at 14 laps. This will be 15 at the end of this lap.
It also leads me to wonder if the AlphaTauris are a little bit harder on tires or a little bit worse on worn tires than the other one.
Well, Lieutenant Spartacus is now under 2 seconds, so I'm wondering at this point if we're going to see a race strategy with teammates come into play. Moises may duck in here, and it looks like he has not opted to do so yet. The gap between McLaren and Moises is about 3 seconds approximately. Actually, I take that back. It's about 4 seconds right now.
That it is.
And it looks like right now our close battle is this for 8th place between the Haas of Coffee Black and the Aston Martin of SD Bookie. Just under 1 full second, and Daniel Bontempo in the Williams is right behind as Pizza Dog is dropping spots now as he's come into pit, currently in 10th at the moment, now dropping to 11th to the Red Bull of Ishkabibble.
Quick update, General Whitney is back in control of his vehicle.
Perfect. Hopefully that technical issue or whatever was causing the problems for AI to take control have been resolved for his sake.
I hope so as well.
Well, in an interesting turn here, SD Bookie has started to fade on Coffee Black. Same tire degradation. Meanwhile, Daniel Bontempo is starting to reel SD Bookie in. So we may see SD Bookie fall to Daniel Bontempo here in the next couple corners, because Daniel is coming with a head of steam.
He is.
You're going to go on board with Daniel right now as he looks to the inside. This is at the exit of turn 9.
Now outside.
And he does get by without any issue, so he will officially take over 8th place from SD Bookie in the Aston Martin, and will try to chase down the Haas of Coffee Black here for 7th place.
That he will. Those hards must have finally come up the temperature for him.
And Link's Worst Nightmare in the Alfa Romeo has gone into pit, as we also see Coffee Black start to come in. Daniel Bontempo will take over 7th and should also take over 6th here from Link.
And we got a 5-second penalty for Coffee Black speeding in pit lane. It's so easy to do.
It is very much so here in really any of these tracks in F123, especially the high-speed tracks where you're entering very rapidly.
Yes, definitely.
Well, Daniel Bontempo has officially taken over 6th place from Link's Worst Nightmare. He now has a 10.5 second gap to make up on 5th place, the Mercedes of Jay Cokes. However, Jay Cokes has not stopped, so he's on 16-lap-old hard tires. And Jay Cokes is about 3.5 seconds, almost 4 seconds back on the 4th place Williams of Dirty Liberal. And we have officially reached approximately the halfway point of this evening's race here, as we are on lap 18. Moises in the AlphaTauri has come into pit. He will enter in 3rd. He's got about a 13-second gap to Dirty Liberal, and that may not be quite enough to hold that position.
This is going to be definitely was not. As Moises goes on to hards.
So I'd be surprised if we don't see McLaren come in at the end of this lap. That gap is starting to close. Lieutenant Spartacus is really starting to close that gap now at 1.8 seconds. And SD Bookie in the Aston Martin has also come in. He's on 17-lap-old mediums. We'll see what he opts for. Likely going to hards would be my guess.
That would be an excellent guess.
And he does, in fact, go to the hards. So we will see if McLaren, our race leader, comes in at this end of this lap here. He's coming into turn 12 now out of 14 turns. Pit entry is just between the exit of turn 13 and entry of turn 14. We'll see if he ducks to the right hand side. No, he's opting to stay out. And I think he's going to try to push it to see if he can force Lieutenant Spartacus in. The problem that I can foresee with that is Dirty Liberal is on fresher tires and will likely be able to catch up. Liberal is on 6-lap old mediums, though, but I'm wondering what McLaren's strategy is here.
For that matter, for Liberal as well. I mean, he's already had his one pit stop in. Unless he can really stretch those mediums, he's going to need to pit at least one more time himself.
And Moises overtakes the Mercedes of Jay Cokes on the front straightaway here going into turn 1. Does so cleanly. Looked like they were about to make contact just before the braking point going into turn 1, but it does not actually occur. So we'll see what happens here. And Moises on those 1-lap old hard tires. This is the second flying lap for him already. That gap now closing up front, 1.6 seconds. And Ishkabibble, a 3-second penalty for track limits.
It looks like Link's worst nightmare has just, well, about 4 turns ago passed Daniel Bontempo for 6th.
Daniel Bontempo having some difficulties there, and we do see McLaren, our race leader, come in, and Lieutenant Spartacus both coming into pit here. I was expecting McLaren to try to push it as long as he could, and in fact he did. 19 laps on mediums, not an easy thing to do by any feat. SD Bookie with another 3-second penalty for track limits.
He's got to be careful. He might be disqualified soon if he keeps it up.
And Dirty Liberal has taken over race lead. McLaren's been released, but an interesting thing to note here, we are starting lap 20. Lieutenant Spartacus just went to soft tires with 16 laps left in the race.
That is certainly an interesting move. Let's see how this plays out.
I'm wondering if that may have just been a miscommunication in his request to the team coming in.
It is likely. It is not very difficult to mess up the tire selection choice in the middle of a race.
That is very true, especially here in F1. That is a very easy thing to do in F1 23. And it looks like we've got a Mercedes off pace. That is the Mercedes of Jay Cokes, who's fallen back into 8th place now.
Oh, he has no front wing.
That he does not. So some impact there, likely with the wall, because there was no one else around him when that was thrown out. But you can see just how gingerly he is going through here. As Daniel Bontempo now gets a 3-second penalty for track limits.
I don't know. This is turning into a penalty party.
That it is. We did see quite a few at Silverstone as well, really across the grid. At one point in time, out of about, we had like 14 or 15 drivers at Silverstone. We had, I believe, about 10 or 11 drivers with penalties. There was about 3 people who didn't have penalties at one point.
Wow. That Bad to see that flag, but hey, at least it makes the finishing order interesting. I'm wondering if Jay Cokes will go with mediums here on this pit stop, since anytime you go into the pit, you do have to take tires.
That indeed.
And it looks like softs were the option. All right, let's see here. Looks like Moises is riding right near McLaren's rear end, see if anything happens there. Currently about a half second behind him, going out just a little bit. Oh, Lieutenant Spartacus has just pulled a 1:19.225 for the current fastest lap of the race. And it looks like Moises has passed McLaren. So far, let's see, we have Ishkabibble on 10-lap old soft, so we'll see what he is going to do with this round. He is gaining on Daniel Bontempo currently. And McLaren is staying glued to Moises' rear end. Currently about a half second back, varying just a little bit. Moises is currently 2 seconds behind Lieutenant Spartacus in second place. Looks like Farmer Ginge is currently just passing Wubby's 210 due to an error that Wubby's made. A little bit tail happy coming out of the corner. Laren has closed the gap down to a 1/10 of a second. But remains in fourth place. And it looks like Tegan is heading into the pits to exchange out his 17-lap-old hards. And as McLaren starts to fall back a little bit from Moises, it's now about 3/4 of a second. Looks like we got a little bit of action at the back of the field as Parky 8, General Whitney are getting quite dicey. And Lieutenant Spartacus has made the pass for first place. So Dirty Liberal is now in second, Moises in third, and McLaren in fourth, with Lynx in fifth, but 11 seconds behind the first 4 racers. And it looks like Parky 8 has fallen back to 5 seconds back from General Whitney.
And a little bit of shuffling around happening here, kind of all over the grid. Spartacus has taken over race lead. McLaren and Moises in the AlphaTauris in second and third right now, both on the hard tires. Spartacus is going to probably have to pit again here within about the next 5 to 7 laps, I'm going to say, because he's already ran 5 full laps on those softs. I'd be surprised if we see Spartacus make it past about lap 31, unless there's a safety car, which so far we've had a relatively uneventful race when it comes to incidents.
We certainly have. And Wummies 210 and Tegan 2007 have definitely been dicing it up a little bit here. Switching back and forth, playing the old flip-flop routine.
Yes, we do see Tegan and Wubbies here on stream now, and they are going by, it looks like, actually, that's going to be Scavenger getting in the mix here. So Tegan, looking to the inside of turn 1, does make the move on Scavenger, who does fall back to 14th now officially. Scavenger on 11 lap old hards, as Tegan's on 2-lap-old softs. So Tegan's in a good spot right now to go the distance on those softs. I do suspect by about lap 34, he's going to start to struggle with some grip, but he should be able to make it to 35 without too much of an issue.
That he should.
And the AlphaTauris really kind of staying close together and really just kind of drafting off of each other, using the slipstream to their advantage. The problem, though, is I think it's going to start slowing them down if Moises really starts to kind of slow down to keep McLaren with him. But McLaren allowed Moises by, so if they can continue to kind of leapfrog without losing too much pace, as long as they can really keep with each other, we may see slipstream and DRS advantage for them, even though there's only one DRS zone for this track. Oh, we've got a car around at the exit of turn 1. That is the Ferrari of Parky 8, and I can't tell on the right side. It looks like the left side was okay. Scavenger also around the exit of turn 1. He did make contact with the wall, it looks like, though, and I think he actually lost the entire front wing.
He did.
Oh, and we have a safety car on lap 26 of 35. This is going to throw a wrench into everyone's strategy here, and I would be surprised if we don't see almost everyone, especially in the top 10, aside from Ishkabibble maybe, come in for fresh tires.
We might.
So this is going to make things very, very interesting in these closing laps.
Very interesting. We should also mention Dirty Liberal as well is not likely to have to come in. It looks like Lynx. Yeah, here we go. Here's the pit road run.
Well, the thing with Lynx, or sorry, not with Lynx, but with Dirty Liberal, I would be surprised if he does stay out just because he's on the mediums. If he has any fresh softs, I would expect him to come in just to take advantage of that, since everyone will be grouped up.
That they will. Looks like fresh mediums for Coffee Black. Fresh mediums for SD Bookie, J Coat, and softs for J Coats. Farmer Ginge as well going with fresh medium.
And we can see Lieutenant Spartacus coming into pit on 8-lap-old softs. We'll see what he changes to. Looks like fresh softs. Moises is into pit, as well as his teammate right behind him. They will double stack. With the gap, though, it shouldn't cause too much of an issue here. McLaren will get slowed down, and Moises has actually gone for medium tires. And it's an interesting call. We'll see what McLaren going for soft, so we will see how this plays out. And Dirty Liberal has opted to stay out, so he will overtake McLaren here, I believe. And in fact, he does as McLaren rejoins the racing surface. And Lieutenant Spartacus continues to lead the way as he has officially formed up the safety car queue.
So now everybody's got to get caught up and in the safety car queue so we can restart the race.
And this will be interesting to see what happens. We will likely have the safety car out until, I'm going to guess, the end of lap 29 at the minimum. And I would say no longer than the end of lap 30.
Definitely at a minimum. Although from the looks of the spread in the field, it might take 32 or, well, lap 31, 30 or 31. Because they do have to fight with the, oh, I'm blanking on it.
The Delta?
Yeah, the Delta pace.
Yeah, the Delta pace will be a little bit difficult. That is one thing that has been a challenge with some of the F1 games more recently. But with the slower pace here, it looks like everyone's already come into pit. So everyone that has needed to make a stop has made a stop. And pretty much everyone, with the exception of Dirty Liberal, has stopped under the safety car. General Whitney had just come out right before the safety car was deployed. And they're pretty much favoring the softs here, it looks like late. It's almost an even split between medium and softs for the entire grid.
That it is. I think the oldest tire I see is the 5-lap-old softs of Tegan 2007.
And yeah, let me actually correct myself on that as well. Dirty Liberal, Tegan, and Whitney are the only three who have not come in under the safety car. And it looks like the 7th place Alfa Romeo of Link's Worst Nightmare working his way back to the safety car queue. So he'll be the next car to join up. And I would suspect, for the most part, with an exception of pretty much the last 3 cars here in the lineup, we have our safety car queue pretty much formed up by the end of this lap. In 8th place of Ishka Bibble and 9th place of Coffee Black have officially joined the safety car queue. SD Bookie and the Aston Martin is going to be coming up here by the end of turn 5. And Jay Cokes in 11th place in the Mercedes has officially joined, and his teammate Tegan in the other Mercedes is not far behind as we are working our way through turn 6 and 7 and into 8. Oh, and Parky 8 has officially retired. I'm not sure what prompted the retirement.
A DNF. I don't know.
And it looks like the Alfa Romeo of Wubby's 210 was the only one with the vantage point. However, we weren't able to get to them in time in order to see kind of what happened. Judging by what we saw on the feed, though, he DNF'd as he retired, which usually generates as a user-generated DNF, so someone basically just retiring from the session under their own will. So maybe some just bad luck for Parky 8.
It certainly looks that way.
And this queue is definitely all kinds of shuffled around. Wubby's 210 is the last car really to join the queue, as we have officially started lap 30. And Wubby's 210 is technically in 14th. However, the 15th place car of Scavenger, the McLaren, and the 16th place car, the Red Bull of General Whitney, have both joined the queue, and they are not in the proper running order. So they are just kind of in the mix there amongst everyone. So Wubby's 210 will join in just a second.
Yeah, and he is in 14th, but he will be at the end of the pack. That's what lap cars do.
This is very true. And with the positioning of Wubby's 210, he is threatening to lap Scavenger and General Whitney here, probably within the closing few laps, as long as there's no other issues. 1 minute and 22 seconds behind is Scavenger from Wubby's 210 right now. And we are on lap 30 here. We have a full safety car queue, with the one exception of the retirement of the Ferrari of Parky 8. So I suspect here, probably at the exit of turn 10 or so, which is about 2 turns away, we will probably see the message of safety car in. If we don't, it'll definitely be next time by, without question.
Without question. Then it'll be a 3-lap sprint. 4-lap, technically.
I was going to say, that'd be 4 laps. And there's the safety car in. That was actually at the exit of turn 11, so Lieutenant Spartacus will lead us back to green flag racing. He's going to be throttle controlled, so he's limited on how fast he can drive right now to allow the safety car adequate space to get back into pit lane. You can see that gap very growing drastically there. Great angle here at the corner of turn 13. Said 12.
That happens.
And Lieutenant Spartacus leads us through turn 14, and we are officially back to green flag racing. Even though the lights are indicating safety car, but we are officially green.
Oh, glitches.
And it looks like Scavenger has opted to allow the AI to take over the car for the time being. That could be technical, or it could just be him being precautious for not causing incidents.
Could indeed be either one at this point. Looks like Ish Kabibble and Jay Cokes are changing spots pretty quickly there.
That they are. And Lieutenant Spartacus has opened up the gap to almost a full second over Moises right now. And Moises has opened up his gap to over 1 second over Dirty Liberal. And McLaren is trying to chase him down right now to take over third, which would lock out a podium for AlphaTauri. Even if they don't get the race win, it would still lock out the podium for them. And we've got a car around. It looks like it's going to be a Haas and a Mercedes. Yes, Farmer Ginge and Tegan. And looks like just an isolated incident. We will continue to race here. No safety car or virtual safety car.
And no damage.
Moises has fallen back to a full second on Spartacus. Meanwhile, McLaren and the other AlphaTauri hovering right around 0.3 of a second and closing on Dirty Liberal as Spartacus has set the preliminary fast lap of a 1:19.089 for the race. With just a number of laps to go here, we are almost down to 3 laps to go.
Looks like Link is working on Pizza Dog a little bit here. I think he wants to cut him out of 6th.
That indeed, Link's Worst Nightmare at about 0.3 of a second. And he's actually starting to fade back just a little bit, reached 0.4 of a second. Link's Worst Nightmare does have a lap fresher tires than Pizza Dog in the Ferrari right now. And back in 4th and 3rd place here, McLaren was at about 1/10 of a second. Coffee Black with 3-second penalty for track limits, so that's going to hurt him where he's at.
Certainly will.
And McLaren getting really close to the back of Dirty Liberal there at turn 12. And Wubby's 210 and SD Bookie swapping spots. Wubby's 210 moving into 11th right now. Wubby's is 4.4 seconds back on Coffee Black. Lieutenant Spartacus improving the fast lap to a 1:18.761.
Brilliant lap time. Brilliant lap time.
DRS is officially enabled now for the final 3 laps of the race. So Wubby's 210 needs to gain about almost a full 2 seconds right now on Coffee Black. If he can gain 2 seconds on Coffee Black, he will be close enough to take over 10th to get that last points finish position here. Meanwhile, Pizza Dog is in a perfect condition to take over 5th place from Daniel Bontempo, who currently has a 6-second penalty. There's only about 2 seconds separating them.
That there is. You can keep it clean and error-free. He'll be home free.
And Link's Worst Nightmare trying to close on Pizza Dog still for 6th place, separated by about between 5 and 6/10 of a second right now. SD Bookie with a 3-second penalty, though. That's going to hurt him. He's in 12th currently, dropping to 13th now and into 14th as well. And he is actually stopped on the track and has retired. I think that retirement mostly coming out of frustration from the late spin in the race. Very unfortunate turn of events as McLaren now claims the additional point, 1:18.454 for the fastest lap. But we'll see if the additional point stays with McLaren right now. Currently our points leader for the series by about 35 points over his teammate, who is ahead of him right now. Oh, and McLaren getting very squirrely there at the exit of turn 2, going into turn 3, and has managed to get by Dirty Liberal, who has fallen into 4th now. The question is, are we going to see any sort of team orders come into play here? And Tegan is out as well. And that one looks like that might be actually related to an incident there, as he is stopped at the exit of turn 1 and has likely nosed into the wall, which may have torn the wheel off. But we are staying green flag racing. The car has been removed from the track. McLaren now closing in on his teammate, Moises. This is going to be for 2nd place. Will Moises race him to the line, or will we see team orders come into play of any kind? And Dirty Liberal right behind, looking to take advantage here.
And while they're battling it out, they're losing a little bit of time to Lieutenant Spartacus.
That they are. That gap now at 2.3 seconds. Meanwhile, Dirty Liberal hovering all over the back of both the AlphaTaurs. They almost come together right there, and McLaren overshoots the braking point and will drop from third to fourth. Dirty Liberal goes by as we've started the final lap of the race, and things are still getting heated here.
Pizza Dog is just past Link's worst nightmare.
Let's ride on board with McLaren here. This is going to get interesting. That gap now almost at 3 seconds for Lieutenant Spartacus. Oh, and McLaren, almost loses it coming through turn 4. He runs wide and hits the curb, and it just causes the car to brake a little bit on him, but he will lose his gap to Dirty Liberal now, almost a full second back. Meanwhile, Dirty Liberal still trying to chase down the other AlphaTauri of Moises, who is just trying to hold on here right now. And the gap between Dirty Liberal and Moises at 0.3 of a second. Lieutenant Spartacus comes through turn 13 there and will lead us to the line. And we are through turn 14. Spartacus comes through and he will cross the line in first for the win, followed by Moises and Dirty Liberal, and then the second AlphaTauri of McLaren, followed by the Williams of Daniel Bontempo. And Bontempo will fall multiple spots here from 5th to 7th due to his 9-second time penalty. So that will hurt Williams a little bit in the standings there for tonight's race. Link's Worst Nightmare and Pizza Dog come through in 5th and 6th. So we will have our full results here in just a matter of a few moments.
Coffee Black is driver of the day.
And I honestly would say that is pretty well deserved. Even though he struggled early on and in qualifying, he did definitely have a strong outing for a newcomer into the league.
Definitely agreed on that one.
You could definitely tell in those closing laps tonight that Moises and McLaren were pushing as much as they possibly could, as hard as they could, all the way to the end, and it ultimately costs McLaren that podium spot, unfortunately. A very hard pill to swallow, but still the right thing to do, I would say, for AlphaTauri, still getting on the podium with Moises.
That they certainly did. That was an impressive race.
And our official results are in. Lieutenant Spartacus in the Alpine starts in 5th and manages to bring it home for the win. The AlphaTauri of Moises starts 2nd, finishes 2nd. Dirty Liberal starts 3rd, finishes 3rd for Williams. And our pole sitter, McLaren, finishes 4th with the bonus point for the fast lap. Meanwhile, Pizza Dog in the Ferrari rounds out the top 5. And then Link's Worst Nightmare, Daniel Bontempo, Jay Cokes, Coffee Black, and Ishka Bibble round out our top 10, most of them with penalties. With that, though, we are finished here in Hungary for round 12. We are back next week for round 13 of the TX Racing League. And for next week, let's double check where we're going. I believe next week is Spa. So we will be back for Spa on the 9th of December. Mushroom Emo, as always, a huge thank you for joining me. It's been a fantastic